Hi there, Unity family. We're back again on the AfricaUnity platform. My name is KingIdris and I have a lot to speak about today. I'm in here to give you guys the new insight on what is going on the home ground in Africa and international community. My people, today we had a lot to say. I'm in here to give you insight about the 10 good reasons why a lot of Africans have a lot to say about the passing away of Queen Elizabeth II. Number one, I'll be talking about colonialism. And number two, exploitation. Number three, assassination of a lot of African leaders. And number four, African wealth and slavery. And number five, neocolonialism. Number six, Africa independence, and number seven, independence of African states. Number eight, British indirect rule on the soil of Africa, and number nine, Commonwealth, and number 10, African natural resources. My people, Queen Elizabeth II passed away in Scotland, whereby she assumed the throne of England on June 6, 1952. This is the highest rank of any power in the whole world, because the British, they control a lot of countries around the whole world, and they have a lot impact on any country you mention in the whole world, because they're one of the ancient empire that enslaved a lot of African people. And according to what people talked about, like the people of Ghana, South Africa, Nigeria, Tanzania, a lot of English colonized country speak about a lot of their natural resources, their gold, their diamond, their a lot of so many natural resources being taken out of Africa by the British. And the British, they're the head and the controller of all the Commonwealth countries in the world, whereby Ghana, Nigeria, Tanzania, Antigua and Barbados, Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, a lot of countries in the Caribbean and a lot of countries on the shore of Africa, they are part of this Commonwealth country. You can see in times of the head of state that went to pay their last respect for the Queen of England, Elizabeth II. So my people will be deepening in time. So after the Queen of England passed away, a lot of Africans, talked about this, and they expressed themselves like they had no remorse for the passing away of the Queen, because the Queen is part of the leader in the world, in the new international order that really put in work and deny a lot of African leaders their heritage, their position. And you talk of a lot of active player in the times of colonization on the soil of Africa, like you talk in the Scrabble of Africa. British have a lot of roles to play. So a lot of African people now are coming out to talk about this, like when the colonization of Africa was going on, truly the indirect rule being brought up by the British Empire at the time really works for some countries in Africa. But at the end, the intra-American slavery, whereby the British really contributed to the enormous, the massive movement of slaves from the shore of Africa, mostly in Nigeria, Gambia, Senegambia, Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana, a lot of French colonized country. So in times of colonization, a lot of African leaders and a lot of African people speak on this, that it was the era of Queen Elizabeth II, which she was in power from 1952. Even when Africa had their independence, she's been on the throne for like 10 to 13 years, and she had nothing to do about it, because according to the way African people put it, she's part of the people that exploited Africa out of their resources, their identity and their heritage. So my people, number two, we talked about the exploitation of 400 billion diamond. There's a diamond from South Africa that is being worth 400 billion. It's part of the exploited items out of Africa, and the South African people have been speaking out about this. You can see the prolific leader Malema really came out to speak about this. The human rights activist out of South Africa said he had no remorse for the British, because the British was on the apartheid rule in collaboration with the Boers, people that come from Netherlands, they're all from Europe. So they said, Malema said, these are the ones from South Africa. I'm just giving inside my people. He said the British are part of the people that exploited South Africa out of their 400 billion that the king had in their palace in England. And it's been said that this is the coronation crown that the king added on, had this enormous diamond on, worth of 400 billion out of South Africa. And a lot of South Africa have been spitting out about this, like the British should return their diamonds, and a lot of exploitation too. We'll be talking about Ghana speaking out about their gold reserve that the British stole and they transported down to England, and a lot of Nigerian artifacts too, in terms of history, tradition, in terms of the ancient Benin Empire in Nigeria, that they had a lot of artistic work that have been taken down to the to British and some other side in the Western world that we have today in the international community. And the third one, we'll be talking about the assassination of an enormous African leader at the time of the lot of Africa speak out about is that when the Queen was in power, a lot of African Pan-Africanists, a lot of people that speak out against colonialization, that speak about the cruel treatment on the African soil by the Western world in Africa. A lot of African leaders were being assassinated. We can see talk of Patrick Lumumba, and a lot of prominent people on the soil of Africa, Thomas Sankara, a lot of prominent actors on the soil of Africa was being assassinated at this era, and a lot of African people speak about this, that's the reason why they had no remorse. And on the wealth of Africa, Africa is the ancient, one of the ancient empire in the world, and had the vast Arabian land that had a lot of natural resources hidden in this beautiful Arabian lands, with a lot of quality and prolific impact in the global village. And they said a lot of African wealth has been stolen through people coming to Africa for mining of gold, diamond. So there's a lot of exploitation out of this, and African wealth being taken away mostly by the Europeans and mostly by the British Empire. And we're talking of British Empire really enforce and they push this narrative of the new colonialism on the soil in Africa, and the face of this new colonialism is the British Empire. We're talking about the Emperor Queen Elizabeth II that passed away. She was the face of the new colonialism in the world, mostly on the shore of Africa, mostly to the British English-speaking colonized country on the soil of Africa. And number 6, we'll be talking about the independence of African state. The independence of African state. African states had their independence, like the Ghana Empire had it early, followed by other African states in 1960s and 1961, 63. A lot of English colonized country, French colonized country, a lot of countries in Africa had their independence in 1960, whereby the face of this independence and the person that goes around to give them the accreditation of the new independent state or country is Queen Elizabeth II, and she did nothing to stop the attacks and a lot of propaganda, a lot of issues happened on the home soil in Africa at the time, and Queen Elizabeth had nothing to do about this. And a lot of people complain about the independence of African state, that it comes early, and some African state they just give them independence for fun, like it's just for play, like it doesn't mean nothing. They just give them flag to celebrate themselves. That British still control some of the African countries because they had the main ruler and the controller of the Commonwealth, whereby all these African states that are independent from Great Britain, they are in the Commonwealth, whereby the king and the emperor of the British Empire is still the controller of all the Commonwealth countries in the world. And again, the indirect rule of the British Empire on African soil, the indirect rule really play a significant role on the independence in Africa, whereby the people of Africa now are now complaining that British use their kings and their chiefs and their the older person in their family at the figurehead of the family, they use them to exploit and extort the people on the home ground in Africa, that the indirect rule really affect the family backgrounds in Africa, and it really affects the leaders and how things are being done on the home ground in Africa, whereby the British Empire really had a massive interest and a massive movement at this time, whereby a lot of people really complain about the indirect rule, and the African people now are feeling the pains because the corruption is still persists and is being stepped down from British Empire down to the president of Africa through the indirect rule, and then now put it up to be the new independent state in the world, whereby the British Empire still control the government of the day or the president of the day in the English colonized country. And the Commonwealth, we'll be talking about the Commonwealth, that is number 9. The Commonwealth comes up because a lot of English colonized countries are being formed up and being grouped up in the Commonwealth. We're talking of Nigeria, Ghana, Barbados and Antigua, Trinidad and Tobago, Jamaica, a lot of countries in the Caribbean and a lot of countries in the shore of Africa are being grouped up, are being bust up in the Commonwealth, whereby the King or Queen of England are the main ruler and are the absolute power, you know, on the prolific level on the African soil, because they're put in part of the Commonwealth country. Like the British country will be there to speak up for them and save them out if they had war or they have problems or they had issue in their country. They're gonna help them out. It's just like if you look at the northern island today, you can see the island, the Iceman Island, whereby the King Charles III of England control now. And you can see the Putin example is like the Putin island in India, whereby it's being controlled by India, but it's an island. They have their own jurisdiction, they have their own passport, they have their own laws, but it's under the jurisdiction of the Great Britain, whereby the king control that. So that's the way the Commonwealth is, like a small box group people, whereby the King of England have the absolute say. So the people of Africa complain massively about this. Like they don't know the meaning why they formed the Commonwealth, because it's not helping none of the African countries or the Caribbean countries. And African natural resources, Africa have the vast natural resources out of the whole of the world. Africa is the modern land. They had far history in terms of the natural resources. Anything you see in the world, in Europe, you know, the platinum, the copper, the gold, the diamond, a lot of natural resources, crude oil, gas, a lot of natural resources being taken out of Africa, and Africa is the whole of natural resources. So my people, Queen of England ruled England for 70 years. For the whole of 70 years, people see nothing good coming out of it. It's just all our properties, our resources being stolen out, you know. And Marcus Garvey in 1914 stated that British Empire owned half of the world resources and half of the countries on earth at that particular time. In 1914, the great Marcus Garvey out of Jamaica stated this, that British owned half of the wealth and the resources in the world. And the great African leaders really speak about the great African leaders really talked about the extortion and, you know, the division, the divide and conquer rule that the British used to cripple the wealth of Africa. A lot of African leaders speak out about the divide and rule tactics that the British rule used to cripple a lot of African countries and a lot of African wealth. So all Commonwealth countries, the Caribbean and African countries now, some of them say they feel the pain and the passing of the Queen, and some of them say they had no remorse for the passing of the Queen. You know, so these are the reason why a lot of Africa really speaking now, because the United Kingdom had a lot of authority and control on Africa, and this has been going on for a long time. So my people, we just bring it out to speak about the Queen of England, Elizabeth II, the passing of Queen is an end of an era, and the new King of England now, you know, the people in the European atmosphere, they really celebrated the Charles III, which is the new King of England. And my people, I'm just in here to give you the insight on Africa and the Queen of England, Elizabeth II. I'm just giving you insight for you people to know what happened in the past and how African people are really talking about the passing away of the king. It's the end of an era. I know a lot of African people celebrate the king, and a lot feel this other way that I've already spoken about because of the exploitation, colonization, neocolonialism, and African wealth. Everything going on in Africa, in terms of the leader and what Africa became in this modern era. So I'll be coming to an end of the segment today. I'll be saying one people, one Africa, one unity. Thank you, my people. Subscribe and comment in the comment section.